Hello, I'm McKinley Smith, and the topic I chose to talk about today is something I'm most passionate about, and that's flying gliders. Now, gliding is more than a hobby for me. It's my stress reliever. There's so many stories that I could tell you about gliding, and even more lessons that I learned from it. But before I get into any of that, let me give you some background on gliding. First off, what is a glider? The Federal Aviation Administration defines a glider as a heavier-than-air aircraft that is supported in flight by the dynamic reaction of air against its lifting surfaces, and whose free flight does not depend on an engine. So simply put, a glider is an aircraft without an engine. Well, without an engine, Kinley, how do you get in the sky? Well, much like how a car without an engine would have to get a tow, we get a tow from the tow plane. This is a Pawnee tow plane, and with its 235 horsepower engine, it literally pulls us into the sky. As you can see here, there's a tow rope that is connected to the end of the tow plane. Now the other end of the rope is connected to the nose of the glider right here. When a glider pilot wants to take off, we're assisted by a wing runner. He levels the wings and he gives a signal to take out the slack, which looks like this. Then, when the glider pilot's ready, he'll waggle the rudder in the back right there, and then we'll take off, like so. Once in the air, the glider pilot tries to stay behind the tow plane at all times. We try to keep the wheels on the horizon, mimicking its every move. And even though the tow plane's pulling us, we're still two independent aircrafts. So I have to do my best to stay behind them at all times. Now, we do this till it's time to release, and I would usually release around 1,000 feet for a pattern tow, or up to 5,000 feet for an acrobatic flight. When we release, the tow plane will turn to the left, the glider will go to the right, getting good separation between the two. And then we're on our own. Free flight with no engine. Now some powered pilots, they might not call this flying. They would call this falling because we don't have an engine, but us glider pilots like to call it soaring. Once off tow, the first thing glider pilots look for is lift. This is pockets of rising air called thermals. We use thermals to stay up for hours at a time, and we also use them to gain altitude. But every pilot's different, and we all have a different objective when we fly. Some are for formation flying, some like racing, or going cross country, or what I normally do, which is just fly for fun. But what goes up must come down. So let's talk about landing. Glider pilots must always stay in with range of a suitable landing area. Notice how I said suitable landing area and not airport, because sometimes we don't always make it back to the airport. We only get one chance to land. We can't come in too low and add power. We can't come in too high and do a go-around. We get one shot and we have to be perfect, but sometimes we're not always perfect. Actually, some of my friends have landed in people's backyards. Yeah. And actually, people got into gliding because someone's landed in their backyard, which is actually kind of interesting. But now that I've given you some background, let me tell you about my experiences flying. I started flying when I was 13, and I absolutely loved it. There was something so simple but so unique about flying. No one I knew possessed the skills to fly except for my dad, and he actually inspired me to fly, and I actually looked up to him. At 13, I didn't really know what to expect about a glider. I expected a lot of gadgets and doohickeys, but it was actually kind of simple. With only a variometer telling me my rate of lift and sink, airspeed indicator, altimeter, compass, and radio. And once I got the hang of this, it felt like I was flying in no time. By myself. Look at that. By myself. I soloed March 18th, 2010, and I will never forget that day. It was so amazing that these men who've been teaching me how to fly a little over a year would let a 14-year-old boy take out a $90,000 glider by myself just for fun? Like, I love the responsibility and the respect that I got, because the other pilots kind of looked up to me too. It was kind of cool. But as a 14-year-old, I also love the attention. After this flight, this was a short flight, I came back and I was greeted by my dad with this huge smile on his face that just screamed he was proud of me. Can you see it? Can you see the proudness? Yeah. After that, I got out and we were immediately dunked by water as customary when you solo any plane, and my wings were clipped, or my shirt was pretty much cut. That's pretty much it. But, no. My next triumph was when I got my pilot's license. Chad on the left, myself on the right, and my dad in the middle. We had studied countless hours and spent a lot of money, all invested just to fly. But it was worth it. It was worth it seeing the smile on my dad's face. It was worth it seeing the smile on all my passengers' face. Like my barber. I took my barber flying in exchange for a haircut. And like my Colleyville crew, who is out there in the crowd watching right now. It was worth it because I just love sharing the joy of flying with everyone I see. Flying has taught me so much over the years, but I just want to stress a few things. The first is studying. There were so many books I needed to read and so many rules I needed to know. And because of flying, I developed better study habits. And because of that, I made better grades this year. The next thing is about checklist and careless mistakes. One thing that I learned because of flying is you have to check, and then check again. This picture was taken after I had a 5-hour flight. Now let me set this up for you. Imagine that you're flying, okay? You're sipping on your Gatorade, having a great time. You're 3 hours into it. But, oh wait, there's a cloud. Oh, a bird. But, now you have to pee. So what do? You take out your handy-dandy relief tube, okay? And you go to work, yeah. But, what did you forget to check? That's right, your relief tube. How'd you find that out? Because as you were relieving yourself, you found out it was clogged and it kind of got over you a little bit. Then you had to go to plan B. And that involved the Gatorade bottle that I was sipping on, but I don't want to get into that. That's a little graphic. But the moral of the story is you don't have time for careless mistakes. You have to check, and then check again. The next thing I learned is about determination. See, I don't tell a lot of people this, and that's that I didn't get my pilot's license on my first try. I got it on my second. And that's because the way you get your pilot's license is you have to take a written test, then an oral test, and then you have a flying test. Well, the written test and the flying test, that's easy, nothing to it. But the oral, that's the hard part. The check airman can ask you anything, and you're expected to know everything. Well, she asked me about a graph, and I knew about the graph, but I couldn't explain the graph, so I bust. In retrospect, this is like you're dating a girl, okay? And you've been dating this girl for 4 years. You really like this girl. She's really into you. You're really into her. Every time you go out, you guys have a great time. But then she asks you a question about herself. And it's a question that you think you know, you probably should know, but you don't know. And she ends things right there. That's how it felt for me. Yeah, I was devastated, mortified even. I was the son of a captain for American Airlines. There was absolutely no way I was supposed to bust this check ride. I was ashamed. I felt like I let my dad down. I felt like I let myself down. I wanted to quit. I didn't want to keep flying. I didn't want to go back. I felt like I couldn't go back. It was so embarrassing. But because of this, I learned to never give up. I felt like I was in over my head a lot of the time. At 13, flying, Nah. At 14, soloing? No way. But at 17, getting my private pilot's license, that did not seem like a thought in my mind. Like, that was not going to happen. But you can do whatever you put your mind to, and I'm living proof of that. The last thing that gliding has taught me is not to take anything for granted, whether it's experiences, relationships, time, whatever. The best thing that gliding has done for me is bring me and my dad closer together. Even though we're the same height now, we don't always see eye to eye, and we actually butt heads a lot. But flying is giving us common ground, something we both look forward to. And he's my biggest role model, so I kind of look up to him in that aspect. I'll never forget his face after I soloed, or how proud he was of me after I got my pilot's license. And those are the moments I live for, and those are the experiences that I'll never forget, and the memories gliding has given to me. Thank you.